My father forgot my birthday, but bought my stepsister a brand new car. When she destroyed it while texting and driving, he never paid me back. But years later, she came begging for help, and my answer left them all speechless. I'm 21 years old, I study at university and work part-time at a coffee shop, and like 2 weeks ago, something happened that basically made me realize I'm completely alone in this thing they call family. I guess I should start from the beginning, when my parents got divorced, because that's where everything started going to shit, although I was too little to understand it at that moment. I was like 6 years old when they separated. And at first I thought things were going to be okay because I would still see my dad on weekends and my mom during the week. You know, the typical shared custody that everyone says works perfectly, but that in reality is a disaster for kids. What I didn't know back then was that my dad already had plans to rebuild his life super fast. Like he didn't even take time to process the divorce or whatever. 3 months after the divorce, 3 months literally, my dad introduces me to Barbara and her daughter Courtney. Courtney was my age, 6 years old too. And I remember that my dad was like super excited introducing her to me. Like, look, Abigail, now you're going to have a sister. Isn't that great? And I didn't understand anything at that moment. I just knew that this blonde girl in a pink dress was in my dad's living room and that he looked at her like she was the best thing that had ever happened to him. Barbara was nice to me at first, or that's what I remember. But there was something weird about how she was always checking that Courtney was okay, that Courtney had what she needed. That Courtney wasn't uncomfortable. Looking back, I should have seen it coming. All the signs were there from day one. They got married like 6 months after that first introduction, and I remember that my mom was furious because it seemed too fast to her, but my dad told her she had no right to have an opinion about his life. The wedding was small, just close family, and I remember that Courtney wore a super elegant white dress, like a miniature wedding dress, and I wore a green dress that my mom had bought me, and that definitely didn't match the wedding theme. During the ceremony, my dad told Courtney that now we were a real family and that he was going to take care of her always, and when he looked at me, he just smiled and nodded, like I was part of the decoration or something. That was the first time I felt that emptiness in my stomach. That feeling that something wasn't right, but I didn't know exactly what. The first years after they got married were weird because I kept going back and forth between my mom's house and my dad's house. But every time I arrived at my dad's house, I felt like I was visiting instead of being home. Courtney had her room decorated with everything a girl that age could want, like princess posters, a canopy bed, a ton of toys, while my room was basically a guest room with some of my old stuff. My dad said that since I wasn't there all the time, it didn't make sense to invest much in decorating my room, which I guess makes sense on paper, but when you're a kid, it feels horrible. You know what I mean? Like the message was clear. This isn't really your home. You're just visiting. When we turned 10, we both had birthdays in the same month. My dad threw Courtney a huge party at an events hall. He rented one of those giant inflatable castles, hired a clown. There were like 50 kids invited. Decorations everywhere. A table full of gifts. I was there helping hand out food and candy, basically working at my stepsister's party. And the whole time I was thinking, well, my birthday is in 2 weeks. They're probably going to do something similar for me. Spoiler alert. They didn't do anything. My birthday came and my dad didn't even remember. Literally, the whole day went by and like at 9 at night, my mom called him to tell him it was my birthday and he said something like, "Oh, right. Sorry, honey. We've been really busy with work." Barbara bought me one of those little cakes they sell at the supermarket, and they sang happy birthday quickly in the kitchen. Courtney didn't even come down from her room. That was the first time I cried silently in my guest bedroom, thinking that obviously something was wrong with me, that I wasn't enough for my own father to remember my birthday. The following years were basically more of the same but worse. My dad drove Courtney to school every morning. They would stop by Starbucks and he'd buy her favorite drink. And I had to take the bus because, according to him, his route to work didn't go by my school. Even though literally my school was 5 minutes further than Courtney's. Courtney had the latest iPhone. I had a basic Nokia that my mom had given me. Courtney took ballet classes, piano, French, whatever she wanted. And when I asked to take art classes, my dad said there was no budget for that. The thing is, I wasn't stupid. I saw perfectly what was happening. I saw how my dad looked at her with pride and at me with indifference. I saw how Barbara made sure Courtney had everything and never asked if I needed anything. I saw how in family photos they always put Courtney in the center, and I ended up in the corner like an afterthought. Courtney didn't help at all either. She would go into my room when I wasn't there and take my stuff. like my clothes, my books, whatever. And when I complained, my dad said that sisters share and that I was selfish for not letting her use my things. Once she took my laptop, the one my mom had bought me for school, and scratched it all up because she dropped it. When I told my dad, he just said that accidents happen and that I needed to be more understanding. Understanding of what exactly? I was never clear on. Another day I arrived and Courtney was using my makeup, which I had bought with my own money from the little jobs I did. And when I tried to get it back, she yelled at me that I was a bad sister and didn't know how to share. My dad heard everything from the living room and didn't say anything. Absolutely and completely nothing. When I turned 16, I told my mom that I needed to get a job because I couldn't keep asking my dad for money for everything. She supported me and helped me get a job at a clothing store at the mall. I started working on weekends and after school when I could, and I saved every penny I earned for almost a year. My plan was to buy my own car because I was tired of depending on the bus and having to ask friends for rides for everything. My mom helped me with part of the down payment and I put in the rest, and I bought myself a used 2015 Honda Civic in good condition. It wasn't new or fancy. It had like 80,000 miles, but it was mine. I paid for it with my money, and I felt so proud when I brought it home for the first time. Courtney obviously got jealous immediately. She didn't have a car because my dad said she was still too young to drive alone, even though she was the same age as me. And also, Barbara didn't want her to drive because she thought it was dangerous. So Courtney started asking me to drive her everywhere. Like, Abigail, take me to the mall. Abigail, take me to my friend's house. Abigail, I need you to pick me up from school. At first I did it because I thought that maybe if I was nice to her, things would get better between us. But she never thanked me, never offered to pay for gas, and she always complained that my car smelled weird or that the music I listened to was bad. After a month, I told her I couldn't be her free chauffeur anymore, and she went crying to my dad saying I was mean to her. Like 6 months after I bought my car, my dad bought Courtney a car. A new Mazda 3. Completely new. 0 miles. He justified it saying that she needed transportation for her extracurricular activities and that it would be more convenient for everyone. I didn't say anything because honestly I wasn't even surprised anymore. I just thought, well, at least she's not going to be asking me for rides anymore. Courtney was super happy with her new car. She posted photos on Instagram every day, showed off to her friends, decorated it with stickers and stuff. It lasted exactly 3 months before she crashed it. She was texting while driving, ran a stop sign and crashed into another car. Thank God nobody got hurt, but her car was totaled, like a complete loss. Insurance covered it, but my dad decided he wasn't going to buy her another car immediately because she needed to learn her lesson about driving responsibly. This is where everything got really ugly. Courtney started asking to borrow my car. At first, just for emergencies, or so she said. Like I need to go to the doctor or I have an important interview for college. I told her no, because frankly, I didn't trust her after having seen how she destroyed her own car. And besides, my car was the only thing that was really mine in that house. She got angry, obviously, and went running to my dad saying I was selfish and didn't want to help the family. My dad called me to his study and gave me this long speech about the importance of family and helping each other, and he told me that I had to lend my car to Courtney when she needed it because we were sisters, and that's what sisters do. I told him no, that it was my car and that I had paid for it with my money. He got furious. Told me that as long as I lived under his roof, I had to follow his rules, and that if I didn't lend my car to Courtney, then I couldn't park it in his driveway. I mean, he was literally telling me that either I lent my car to my stepsister or I had to leave. Barbara was standing there listening to everything and didn't say absolutely anything to defend me. She just nodded when my dad spoke. Courtney was behind the door listening. I know because I saw her when I left the study, and she had this smile on her face like she had won something. I decided to lend her my car a couple of times just so my dad would stop bothering me, but every time I lent it to her, Courtney returned it with an empty tank, with trash inside, and once I even found a dent on the bumper that definitely wasn't there before. When I asked her what had happened, she told me she didn't know what I was talking about, and that I had probably crashed and didn't remember. I showed her before and after photos, and she just shrugged and said it wasn't her problem. I went to my dad to complain, and he told me not to make drama over little things and that cars get scratched, that it's normal. One day I came home from school and my car wasn't there. I asked my dad where it was, and he told me that Courtney had borrowed it because she had an important appointment. I told him I hadn't given her permission, and he responded that I didn't need my permission because we lived in the same house and what belongs to one belongs to all, or some stupidity like that. I waited all afternoon and all night, and Courtney didn't come back. At 10 at night, my dad got a call. Courtney had crashed my car. She had gone out partying with her friends, drank alcohol, and on the way back lost control and crashed into a pole. My car was completely destroyed, like it wasn't even worth repairing, and she was in the hospital with a broken arm but otherwise fine. When we got to the hospital, I was in total shock, like I couldn't even process what had happened. My car, that I had worked so hard to buy, was in pieces because my stepsister decided to drive drunk. Insurance wasn't going to cover anything because she wasn't authorized to drive my car, and also she had been drinking. Basically, I lost my car, my savings, everything. I yelled at Courtney in the hospital. I told her she was irresponsible and that she had to pay me for my car, and she started crying, saying it had been an accident and that she was so sorry. Barbara yelled at me to stop attacking her daughter when she was clearly suffering. And my dad, my own father, looked at me and told me I needed to calm down and stop being so dramatic. In the car back from the hospital, my dad gave me another speech, this one even more incredible than the previous ones. He told me that I was selfish for not having shared my car voluntarily from the beginning, that if I had been more generous with Courtney, none of this would have happened, and that at the end of the day, it was just a car and I could buy another one. I told him it had taken me a year to save for that car and that I didn't have money to buy another one, and he responded that then I should work more. Barbara added that I needed to learn to forgive, and that Courtney already felt bad enough, without me making her feel worse. Courtney was in the back seat pretending to cry. I can swear I saw her smile when she thought nobody was looking. That night, I made a decision. I called my mom and told her I needed to move in with her permanently, that I couldn't keep living at my dad's house. She said yes immediately, to pack my things and that she would come for me the next day. I spent all night packing, everything that was mine, which honestly wasn't much. Basically my clothes, my books, my laptop, some photos. The next day, my mom arrived early, like at 7 in the morning, and we started taking out my boxes. My dad came downstairs in his pajamas, saw us carrying things, and just asked what was happening. I told him I was going to live with my mom, and he said okay, like nothing, like his daughter was leaving his house and that didn't matter at all. He didn't try to stop me, didn't ask me why, didn't say he was sorry, nothing. Barbara didn't come out to say goodbye either. Courtney was at her room window watching me leave, and I swear she had that same smile as always. The next 5 years were amazing. Living with my mom was the best thing that could have happened to me. She supported me with everything, helped me save for another car, paid part of my university, was there for me whenever I needed her. I finished high school, got into university to study graphic design, got a small but nice apartment near campus, made real friends, basically built a life that was completely mine and in which I felt valued. My dad didn't call me once in those 5 years. Not on my birthday, not at Christmas, not to ask how I was. Nothing. It was like I had never existed to him. My mom told me that maybe he felt guilty and didn't know how to reach out. But honestly, I think he simply never cared about me enough to make the effort. Like 3 weeks ago, I got a call from a number I didn't know. I answered thinking that maybe it was from work or school, and it was Courtney. I hadn't talked to her in 5 years, and suddenly she calls me like nothing. She said, "Hi, Abigail. How have you been?" With that super fake voice she always used when she wanted something. I asked her what she wanted, and she started telling me that she had broken up with her boyfriend, that she had dropped out of college because it wasn't her thing, that she was living with my dad and Barbara, but the relationship was tense, and that basically she needed a place to stay for a while. I stayed quiet, processing all this. And then she said, "So I thought that maybe I could stay with you for a few months. You know, while I find a job and get stable." I told her no. Just like that? Just no. She stayed quiet for a moment and then said, "No? Just like that?" I explained to her that I had a small 1-bedroom apartment, that I could barely afford my own expenses, and that honestly, after everything that had happened, I didn't feel comfortable living with her. She got angry immediately, told me that we were family and that family helps each other, that I was selfish just like always, that I had never known how to share. I told her that she destroyed my car and that neither she nor my dad ever paid me for it, and that I didn't owe her anything. She started yelling, saying that that had been an accident and that I had never gotten over it, and hung up the phone. Like an hour later, my dad called me. He didn't even say, "Hello." He just started yelling at me, saying how dare I refuse to help my sister, that Courtney was going through a difficult time and that I, as family, had the obligation to support her, that he had given me shelter and food for years, and that now it was my turn to give back. I told him that he had chosen Courtney over me my whole life, that he was never there for me when I needed him, and that if he wanted to help Courtney, he should do it himself. He told me I was ungrateful, that he had done everything for me and that this was the way I was paying him back, and that Courtney was right, that I had always been selfish. I told him that he had forgotten my birthday when I was 10 years old, that he let Courtney destroy my car and never defended me, that he made me feel like a stranger in my own home for years. He said I was exaggerating everything and that I needed to let go of the past. I told him that I had already let it go, that that's why I hadn't tried to contact him in 5 years, and that now he needed to let me go too. I hung up the phone and blocked him. I also blocked Courtney and Barbara. I thought that would be the end of it, but obviously I was wrong. 2 weeks ago, right on my birthday, my dad called from his work phone that I hadn't blocked. I answered, thinking that maybe this time it was going to be different, that maybe he was going to apologize or at least wish me happy birthday. He started with, "Happy birthday, honey. How are you?" All super nice. And for a second I thought he had really changed. But after like 2 minutes of casual conversation, he went back to the topic of Courtney, saying that she really needed help and that I should reconsider letting her stay with me. I told him I wasn't going to change my mind, and that if he had only called me to pressure me, then I'd rather he didn't call again. He said that I had changed, that I had become hard and cold, and that the Abigail he knew would never turn her back on her family. I told him that Abigail died when he chose over and over again, Courtney over her. And I hung up. I blocked that number too. I cried for hours after that call. Not because I regretted what I had said, but because I finally understood that I was never going to have the dad I wanted, that he was never going to change and that I needed to accept it. What really destroyed me happened a week ago. My mom called me, and I was happy to hear from her because she's always been my support, you know? But she started the conversation saying that she had talked to my dad and that he had told her about the situation with Courtney. My mom, the same person who had supported me for years, told me that maybe I should reconsider helping Courtney, that at the end of the day she was my sister, and that we all go through difficult times. I asked her if she was serious, if she really expected me to help the person who made me miserable for years and who destroyed something I had worked so hard to get. She said I was stubborn and didn't let people into my life, that I had always been very emotionally closed off, and that was going to leave me alone. I felt like I had been kicked in the stomach. I told her that I was closed off because I had learned that trusting family only caused me pain, and that if she thought I was wrong for setting boundaries, then maybe she didn't know me as well as she thought. She sighed and said she just wanted me to be happy, and that forgiving was part of that. I told her that I was happy, happier than I had been living in that house trying to earn the love of a father who clearly didn't want me. She started crying, saying I was being dramatic and that I was making things harder than they had to be. I hung up the phone and I haven't answered her calls since then. Now I'm here, in my apartment, that I pay for, surrounded by things I bought, living a life I built. And honestly, I feel freer than I've ever felt. Yes, it hurts knowing that I basically don't have family that supports me. It hurts knowing that my dad is never going to be the father I needed. It hurts knowing that even my mom thinks I should give in. But I also feel powerful. You know what I mean? Because for the first time in my life, I put my needs first. I set boundaries and maintained them. And I didn't let myself be manipulated by people who have hurt me over and over again just because we share blood. Courtney keeps trying to contact me from different numbers, always with the same message that I'm a bad sister and that family helps each other. My dad told relatives that I'm cruel and that I turned my back on my sister in her time of need, and some uncles have sent me messages telling me I should be more compassionate. Barbara posted something on Facebook about ungrateful children without mentioning me by name, but clearly directed at me. And you know what? I don't care. I blocked everyone, deleted the social media where they could find me, and moved on with my life. Last week I got promoted at work and was able to buy myself a better car, a 2020 Toyota Corolla that I found at a good price. When I brought it home and parked it in front of my building, I sat inside for a while, just feeling the steering wheel and thinking about all the road I traveled since that Honda Civic that Courtney destroyed. This time, nobody is going to take this away from me. Nobody is going to drive this car but me. And if anyone has a problem with that, they can go fuck themselves. And yes, Maybe I sound hard or cold or everything my dad says I am now, but I'd rather be this than go back to being that 10-year-old girl waiting for her father to remember her birthday.